let's start here. Full scale of Hamas atrocities revealed as conflict escalates in Israel is a ridiculous way to cover the story because, you know, there is another side to this conflict as well. One side that does not get any coverage whatsoever. Billy has been using Ben Shapiro tweets in his videos. Is Jover? Yes. It's not surprising. Dude. Decades of apartheid did not happen overnight. It did not happen in a vacuum. And Western focus on the matter has almost always been universally in support of Israel. This is not new. Of course this is going to happen. Of course people around you are going to be misguided. Of course people around you are going to be passionate about this issue, and they're going to say things that you might not agree with. I mean, it literally doesn't, there's nothing you can do about that. You will never be able to push back against those people. Ultimately, it does not matter. It doesn't matter what we say. It does not matter what they say. Okay, we'll take a look at what Ben Shabibo said, okay? This is, if you are around, at least alive during the justification for the Iraq War, post 9/11 America, it does not matter. You would 100%. It was the exact same thing. People were literally looking for any kind of person that they consider to be any kind of person that's Muslim. They were literally going to beat your head over it. They were like, you have to immediately address terrorism. Why did you do terrorism? Why are you doing terrorism? All this shit. BO3 of 95. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. The Intercept put out a great article an hour ago. TikTok, Instagram, Target outlet covering Israel, Palestine amid siege on Gaza. New, Gaza is not just running out of food, water, and electricity too, meaning less info coming from victims and local media. Meanwhile, TikTok and Instagram censor sources like Mondo Weiss while spreading misinformation, while misinformation spreads like wildfire on X. It is true. There is so much misinformation happening. Tensions are high. This always happens. This always happens. Whenever there is any kind of whenever there's any kind of situation globally that America is, or the Western media is somehow involved with. I love that as soon as I tweeted that I'm live, Turks came in and started calling me a stupid son of a whore. That's sick. You know, I don't know why. Do we not have the Turkish filter on? Twitter situation with Elon Musk is different. It's not. Twitter always has been a place for misinformation. It's just gotten worse. Different because it's gotten worse. We're going to talk about Ben Shapiro in a second here.
The war in the Middle East, the full scope of the savagery and devastation is becoming even more clear on day 5. President Biden said we must be crystal clear in support of Israel in the most visceral speech of his presidency, condemning the sheer evil of Hamas. Overnight, new accounts coming in from our reporters in Israel about the harrowing and heartbreaking moments on the ground during the terror attack. Now,
like, this stuff is real. Your own people hating on you, yes. This stuff is real. This is this is very real. I wish that the media would also cover the Gazan side of the situation, like the Palestinian babies that are being eviscerated, entire city blocks wiped out. Unfortunately, not much of that coverage happens in the United States or in the Western media in general. Here is Saeed Erekat talking to the State Department alongside, unfortunately, Max Blumenthal, who sucks. I'm going to run this real quick. I'll be back in a second, and then we'll play the other video too.
Does that, in your
also, here's the 3-minute break.
That Israel must end its cutoff of water, electricity, food, and medicine to the people in Gaza?
I will say that, as the president made clear, Israel has suffered from a brutal terrorist attack. Israel has the right to defend itself. It has the right to take action against the terrorists who launched this brutal attack and killed Israeli civilians. It killed American civilians, killed mothers and children and babies and kidnapped children.
And what's Israel doing
And so
now?
they are going to take action to respond to this terrorist attack and take action to secure their country, and we support them. As the president made clear, we always encourage all of our allies and partners to act in strict accordance with international law. That is what democracies do, and I would just point out that, of course, is not what Hamas did. Saeed, let me just finish. That is not, Saeed, that is not what Hamas did in coming into Israel and kidnapping and murdering innocent civilians.
Okay, I understand. I mean, Hamas, you have Hamas listed as a terrorist organization. They don't get $4 billion a year from you. They don't have military aid and support and so on. So that is established. You're saying that Israel is a democracy. It's a country that abides by international law. I'm asking you, the cutoff of water, electricity, food, and medicine is considered a war crime. Do you call on Israel to cease its effort now in cutting off medicine,
Let
water,
me start by saying
humanitarian
that we are
aid?
in the early days of Israel's response. Israel has a right to conduct an aggressive response, to respond to the terrorism that's been committed against its citizens. We expect them to follow international law. We believe that they will, and we will remain in close contact with them about it.
Yeah, okay, bro. Really? You expect them to follow international law? Okay, well, they're not right now, so what's up with that? International law is a joke. There has never been international law followed in Israel. I'm sorry, that is just factually correct, okay? The Israeli apartheid is a clear violation of international law. The Israeli settler terrorism in the West Bank is a clear violation of international law. Israel's first directive, while there were literally Israeli positions inside of Israeli borders, okay, that were still under attack, their first move was to bomb Gaza. They have one note. They have nothing else. You cannot say Israel can do a little genocide as a treat, do a little violation of international law as a treat. International law is a joke anyway. It doesn't fucking matter. Not a single person has ever followed it. Not a single person who is a Western nation or aligned with Western nations has ever had to fucking follow international law. That's not a thing. International law is only used against. Kaya, my love, you are being crazy. Being crazy. Jesus Christ. International law is only used against America's enemies, okay? Yeah. Also, Haaretz reported on the Egyptian intelligence as well. My Bourbon Gamer, thank you for the 5, get the subs.
You believe they should not intentionally target civilians. That's one. Second, do you have any idea on the number of Palestinians killed by Israel in the last 4 days?
I have seen public reports.
What are these?
I am not going to speak to
Are they in the hundreds? In the thousands?
Saeed, I'm going to speak to what the U.S. government can verify, which I've done with a number of U.S. citizens. I will let Israel speak to the number of Israeli citizens that have killed, as well as the.
Do you think this war was really happening because some radical Jewish man entered in a mask and killed Muslims on prayer? No, there's one of many different instances of extremist violence that Palestinians were subjected to. It's only one instance. He's talking about Baruch Goldstein, okay, and his supporters and defenders. But that was only one aspect of it. It's a very understandable aspect of it, by the way. It is all a part of operating an apartheid state. That's how it works. Yeah. I feel like Israel just bombs them first because they're afraid of having a ground invasion when they aren't at their weakest. They know Palestinian willpower is greater. There's a couple different competing factors here. The reason why there's violence on both sides. Yes, man, you got it. Yeah, it's 75 years of maintaining an apartheid state. There's violence on both sides. You're right. You got it out. Are you happy? Now, can we talk about actually solving this conflict? Or can we even analyze where this conflict began, where this war began? As I've said probably a million times over the course of the past couple of days, The violence is asymmetrical. There are many invisible forms of violence that people turn a blind eye to in the maintenance of settler colonial apartheid state that Israel is. Okay? Then there's the visible forms of violence that demonstrate the asymmetry. When you look at the number of Palestinian casualties versus the number of Israeli casualties, even since 2000, you will recognize that one numbers in 6,000, the other is 200, 300. Okay? If you think this entire situation unfolded only 4 days ago, you are delusional. It is ahistorical. And you have been misguided. I do not want to maintain the belief that you are misguided because you are cynical and one-sided. I want to maintain the charitability and assume that, of course, you are misguided due to how much misinformation has been presented over and over again. You don't know shit about the conflict historically. Yes, totally. Like when I talk about the West Bank being partitioned, I don't say it was a necessity for Israeli security to do so. That's what someone that says you don't know shit about the conflict historically means when they say that. Okay? I covered this for hours yesterday. We looked at Betzelem's coverage on the many different tyrannical aspects of what did Betzelem call it? I think they call it like the tyranny of checkpoints. No, what is it? It's like there's a term for it. Hold on. They call it the permit tyranny, I think, right? Something like that. Good term for it. Just describing the restrictions on movement that slowly but surely fell upon the permit regime. Yes, not permit tyranny, permit regime. It did not happen overnight. It happened for a very long time. Sometimes with always with direct support of the Israeli state. Sometimes internationally turning a blind eye to it, and in other circumstances directly causing it, and now absolutely controlling it on its own. Even as we speak, settler terrorists in the West Bank are opening fire on Palestinians. As we speak. Stop being a little annoying right now, Kaya. Please don't make me moment of prayer for the 250 innocent festival goers slaughtered by Hamas. Please don't make me defend Ben Shapiro. Why did they kidnap babies? Did you see the video of the girl with the bloodied pants? This person is only coming here specifically to talk about things that I've already covered time and time again. It's if you are in alignment with someone like Ben Shapiro, especially as someone who is reluctantly in alignment with someone like Ben Shapiro, that should at the very least stop you from, I don't know, that should just cause you to second guess yourself. Now, you can turn around and be like, well, what about you? You're in alignment with Iran in this situation. I am very honest about Iran's personal interest in maintaining some level of control over Palestinians, or maintaining some level of control by way of Hamas inside of Gaza, as a destabilizing force in the other regional power player that they consider to be an enemy. Ben Shapiro's interests in Palestinians and their well-being is non-existent. He has openly written about doing a final solution on Palestinians in the past. He has openly tweeted out that Israelis like to build, but Palestinians, all they like to do is live in sewage and bomb things. He is a horrifyingly Islamophobic, racist piece of shit. And if you find yourself in agreement with him, you should probably re-examine your perspective. Okay? Anyway, before we get to what's going on in northern Israel, southern Lebanon, and all that stuff, and Ben Shapipi getting very upset at me. I guess he found one thing, the clip chimp, I assume. Yeah, here it is, Ben's final solution article. How interesting that this now is, unironically, he wrote this in 2003, okay? But this is literally the official position, pretty much, of the Israeli government, the far-right coalition in the lead-up to the last bombing campaign on Gaza, and maybe even many other Israeli governments that weren't openly stating that this was their goal, but now have fully realized that this is their goal. Ben Shapiro has never been a serious person, especially as it pertains to Israel. Ben Shapiro has defended Ann Coulter when she has said incredibly anti-Semitic things, and has said exactly why he defends Ann Coulter. He defends her because she is a supporter of Israel. Israelis like to build, Arabs like to bomb crap and live in open sewage. This is not a difficult issue. Settlements rock. A 13-year-old tweet, holy fuck. Yeah, I know. Ben nowadays is definitely not virulently anti-Islam and anti-Arab. You're right. His perspective has totally changed over the course of many years. You're right. He certainly has changed. Sad day for everybody. Oh, man, you're just simply making me agree with Ben Shapiro here because of how violent and extremist you have become is pure copium. Anyone who moves away from Palestinian emancipation and the end to the occupation and the apartheid state as it currently exists, simply because they saw the BLM Chicago account post a fucking parachute photo, was never in it. There are Israelis living inside of fucking Israel whose friends got killed, who have more of a fucking backbone as anti-Zionists than you do. Shut the fuck up. There are anti-Zionist, anti-apartheid Israelis right now that are screaming from the fucking rooftops about Israel's blood and soil conquest in Gaza only mere days after their friends were killed. You live in Idaho. You are a white Christian man in Idaho talking about how Palestinians deserve to be ethnically cleansed. Why? Well, because I saw the Chicago BLM account post the parachute photo. And now, not only do I hate Palestinians, I hate fucking BLM too. Well, then it seems like you were never on board. It seems like you had no interest from the jump. It seems like you only had talking points that you were holding on to as long as it was favorable for you. I am not interested in hearing optics conversations from people who keep saying, oh man, it's just, I can't find myself in agreement with saying that Palestinians deserve emancipation due to the violent backlash of being subjected to an endless apartheid regime and the violence that requires, the violence that necessitates. Okay? Yeah.
The media wants it. People on the left particularly are looking for the symmetry. Because again, all cultures are created equal. This is the premise.
Wait, what does he mean by that? Oh, cultures are unequal. He's doing. I love the guy who said, where's that fucking piece of shit earlier, who said Ben's take on Israelis like to build, Arabs like to live in sewage and bomb shit has changed. That's a 13-year-old tweet. Where's that motherfucker now? Where is that motherfucker now? He literally said, oh, these guys always think all cultures are equal. I wonder what he means about
so
this.
much left-wing thought. A full-scale moral idiot, Hassan Piker. He's an emissary of this. Yesterday, he was ranting and raving on his Twitch stream about this and suggesting, of course, why would you... that the only reason that you might murder a Jewish baby is because, obviously, years of victimization. That's clearly the problem. Israel's skirt was too short, you see. That's why you walk...
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, Israel... I'm saying Israel was asking for it because Israel's the victim here. Israel's always the victim. Israeli citizens are a victim, for sure. You know what they're a victim of? Whether they support it or whether they are against it, the fucking apartheid regime. So yes, that is true. Okay? They are a victim to their own government. That's true.
Walk into a village and you rape women and drag them back to the Gaza Strip. That's why you do this. There's a moral...
The only thing that I've heard from this, and I am still maintaining the position that this could very well be a reality. The only thing that has happened about the mass gang of rapists that were, running around, roaming the streets, specifically looking for gang rape opportunities, was a retraction from mainstream media outlets that covered it without actually verifying it. Now, does this matter? Does it matter? Well, it matters as far as trying to present this as a point of propaganda, because ultimately it's still horrifying without adding the additional Muslims are actually looking for gang rape opportunities in the streets. It's still horrifying to have hundreds of people get slaughtered. Hundreds of civilians died. Okay? But that's not enough. You have to add additional shit to that. How do you verify that? Great question, my friend. There are journalists that are allowed everywhere inside of the boundaries of Israel proper. Except the IDF has not really allowed local media, Israeli papers, to actually go to the places where atrocities happened. They've only allowed foreign media to go into places where atrocities happen. Now, part of that is because the Israeli media at this point, regardless of how, their position on being Zionists, are infinitely more critical of the Netanyahu government than Western media is. That's it. They only let Western media in, and then they let in local reporters after Western media has done a full-scale propaganda push. Okay? That's a stretch. This ain't true. No, they first... the settlement that was slaughtered literally exclusively let in foreign press first. They did not let in local media. That is not a stretch. There are also Israeli organizations, NGOs, people dedicated to tracking and covering the ongoing catastrophe inside of Israel and outside in Gaza as well. The notion that it is impossible to get adequate coverage, the notion that you can get correct coverage, especially in Israel, is incorrect. You can get biased coverage, certainly, but there are plenty of organizations, NGOs, and press that is allowed to report on everything that is going on. It is ridiculous It is ridiculous, in my opinion, to continue with, did you say the gang rape claims have been completely refuted? The gang rape claims, in my opinion, were always a racist canard. Is there a likelihood that rape happened in the slaughter? Of course. Of course there is. It is deeply disingenuous and unserious for the media to not cover it without like proof or verification and running along with it. It's like looking at Ian Miles Chong's Twitter account and then going, all right, I guess like this is what we're going with. I am not saying that it's not real, but it is ridiculous to do this without due diligence. The expectation should be that there is due diligence. That is what you expect from the media. You are not a random Twitter account. I have never said that this did not happen. I never said it. Many people will try to go, oh, dude, whoa, look at you, denying rape, denying rape, denying rape, in an effort to, try to assume the moral high ground in this circumstance. I have always maintained the position that there is a likelihood that it could have happened. But simply asking the media to do exactly what the fuck they are supposed to, which is verify reports, is not a ridiculous thing to expect or demand. You are not the Rap TV account. You are not the Daily Loud account. You are fucking CNN. What the fuck are you doing? You are not Ian Miles Chong. You are the New York Times. You are CNN. You are MSNBC. You are not Dick Cerdo. Do your fucking job. Here. Times of Israel. With terrorist bodies still lying in the grass, international press witnesses firsthand the shocking aftermath of Hamas's slaughter of Israeli citizens. Here's the Times of Israel coverage on the matter. Also showing that the Israeli government allowed only foreign press in to the massacre sites before they let literal fucking local press in. Does this not shock you? Do you not think that this is an odd thing to do? And the other part of this is, and this is important, there you mean the likelihood or possibility of rape gangs? No, of course not. Of course not. Not rape gangs, but rape happening, okay? I hate that this is something that we are covering for the third day in a row now, because two things are very frustrating about it. Whether 40 babies are lined up and decapitated by Hamas, or they were shot by Hamas, does not change, or some babies were shot by Hamas and others were adult victims, but still civilians, does not change the reality that this is a slaughter. Okay? So getting caught up in semantics arguments is fucking idiotic in this circumstance. Yet it still does not stop people from presenting in mainstream media, presenting things in a way that is supposed to bog you down. Calling the hippie rave on the border of Gaza a peace rave does not change the reality that plenty of civilians were slaughtered in said rave. Okay? Don't get bogged down by these distinctions. Do not think that this is a victory when you recognize that these people who are reporting on the matters are incorrect. The main journalist that said the decapitated babies line, said, I just want to clarify, I did not tweet 40 babies had been beheaded. I tweeted that the foreign media had been told women and children had been decapitated, but we had not been shown bodies, which was my response to the reports which had gone viral about the 40 babies. I realized the way my tweets was written was too short to explain the full context, so I deleted it. That, of course, did not stop people from going along with it. And yes, here is the IDF. IDF says it won't back up its claim that Hamas decapitated babies in Israel because it's disrespectful to the dead. But it doesn't matter because babies still died in this circumstance. Do you understand? Holy shit. Hold on. There was a tweet that I saw about this particular issue that I think was very good from an American anti-Zionist account. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. That basically said something along the lines of like having these constant back. It wasn't Eli. I think it might have been Eli. Eli Valley said some stuff too. The reason why, I know the reason why people utilize the fog of war to make an already horrifying situation worse. Okay? I know the reason why they do that. It is to move the fucking needle away. It's to shift attention away from the ongoing, catastrophic, unimaginable death and destruction being dealt in Gaza. Okay? That's it. But on the other side, if you find yourself bogged down constantly saying these guys are lying about this, then people are going to look to you and say, well, they still died. And they are right. People are confusing the two things here. Moral distinction, clearly not. Propaganda distinction, clearly yes. The story led the front page of every tabloid in the UK and US and is used to animate calls for indiscriminate bombing. Extremely weird to act like the latter isn't what's at play here. I agree. I care about this from the aspect of propaganda. It is the classic baby incubator line in Kuwait. And that propaganda extended far beyond simply just someone reporting it and retracting it. That propaganda led to investigations, led to a false, a fake witness and fake eyewitness testimony. But the reality is, back then, you simply needed. Here, in 1990, a Kuwaiti girl named Naira testified in Congress that she saw Iraqi troops throwing babies out of incubators. Amnesty corroborated her story. This is why I always mention, like, Amnesty in and of itself is a cutout of the American State Department. So if they are the ones saying Israel is an apartheid state, you fucking bet your ass it is undeniable. The atrocities must be unfucking deniable for NGOs like Amnesty International or NGOs like the Human Rights Watch to turn around and recognize Israel as an apartheid state. Please understand, us having this conversation does not mean that atrocities did not happen. This is not denial of atrocities. This is propaganda, how it works, why it's done, and what you should do about it. Okay? Because make no mistake, if we're looking at baby murder, there is a much more effective baby murder machine on the other side if you look at simply the numbers. And that side, of course, is the Israeli apartheid state. It's not like when buildings are reduced to rubble, the babies inside don't have their heads decapitated from their bodies. They get pulverized nonetheless. They get pulverized all the same.
His fingernails and applied electric shock to sensitive private parts of his body.
"15-year-old Naira revealed the atrocity of Iraqi soldiers in Kuwait." That was a different time. America needed to do more PR and more propaganda at the time. to justify its actions. Maybe they didn't even need to do so, but they did it nonetheless. Now, nowadays, it's definitely different. I do not believe that Israel even needs to beef up their argument when they engage in endless blood and soil bombing campaigns that they call mowing the lawn. They do not need approval from the international community. They get it anyway. This is the point that I need to get across. The additional seasoning added on to the already horrific violence that Israeli civilians experienced is specifically for a lot of those in the Western media to feel comfortable asking and demanding genocide. Okay? And the reality is that, on the one hand, atrocities did, of course, occur. Western media doesn't even need to add that additional seasoning, and they do it anyway. Even though they don't need to for approval from the public.
I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators. Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
Her testimony was the major reason for the escalation.
Desert Storm is launched. 135,000 Iraqis are killed. An estimated 1 million Iraqis, many of them children and old people, then die as a result of 10 years of sanctions.
Later,
Hillary Knowlton selected her as a persuasive witness to this atrocity, and it was all part of a campaign to turn Saddam Hussein, at least in the public consciousness, into Adolf Hitler. And the feeling was that they couldn't sell the Gulf War without this.
Soon after we arrived in Kuwait, 2 weeks after the liberation, it became apparent that the story was a complete hoax. We were able to go around the hospitals to count the incubators and find that, possibly with one or two that had been misplaced, that none were missing.
War very much.
Yes, Central Committee is correct. Same fucking shit. If a lie is believed, sometimes only for an hour, it has accomplished its purpose and there's no further occasion for it. Exactly. You can simply discard it afterwards and maybe even apologize, and sometimes not at all. It does not fucking matter. Okay? It doesn't matter because it already spread. It's done. It's intact. The only, but make no mistake, I am not covering this to say this is a moral victory. Okay? It is not. It's not. This is simply to show you how propaganda works, how propaganda spreads, how propaganda is utilized by those very same institutions like Amnesty or even mainstream media that you are supposed to rely on for accurate coverage.
Much had to be sold to the American people in order to convince them to intervene militarily.
Instead, we're still living with the consequences of our having placed troops in Saudi Arabia, because that's what sets off bin Laden finally.
Anyway, so far on X, the unconfirmed report about 40 murdered babies at least 44 million impressions, 300K likes, over 100K reposts, retweets. The key propagators of the story were I-24 News, EN, and Israel. The story was based on a report by Nicole Zedek. The original report never claimed 40 babies were decapitated. Zedek reported that soldiers told her that up to 40 babies and children were killed and 40 babies were taken on gurneys. She also stated on X that some babies' heads had been cut off. However, those reports, which came from an IDF soldier, have in some cases morphed and gone viral. Some outlets reporting 40 babies killed or 40 babies beheaded, while some are reporting 40 babies killed, some beheaded. Neither of the 40 babies being killed and or beheaded has been independently verified. Indeed, Sky News have said that the IDF have refused to confirm the news. Meanwhile, some highly influential people are continuing to spread the news, including J.K. Rowling, Ben Shapiro being one of them. but narratives around slaughtered babies are particularly emotive and useful in propaganda and jingoism, historically from World War I to false information around the invasion of Iraq in 1990. A reminder to be careful of what you share, especially during live reporting. Regardless of how you frame this, there is clearly misleading information around two things. Ages killed, Zedek said babies and children, how they were killed, some/all beheaded. The lack or clarity and consistency, singular sourcing, is enough to indicate caution with the story. It is terrifying how quickly these things get spread and become an active part of the strategy to justify more bloodshed. It's terrifying. We saw this happen in the invasion of Ukraine, okay, on the Russian side, and even on the Ukrainian side as well. This is a mainstay of warring nations, or a mainstay of conflict, except this time it's even more asymmetrical than Ukrainians justifiably trying to defend their land from Russian invasion, which I have always maintained the position is a just cause. For those of you who want to come in here and fucking, make ridiculous claims. Nuance gets lost in circumstances like this. Back in the day, a lie like this, yeah, yesterday when chatters were linking you white phosphorus claims, you refused to give it oxygen. It's the same work and attention against bad propaganda. Exactly. Is there a likelihood that Israel has used white phosphorus in Gaza? Well, historically speaking, I believe there has been instances, so there is a likelihood. However, these claims, as it stands currently, are unverified. They are unsubstantiated. I am not going to go on videos. Stop saying there are videos. You literally have no idea what you are talking about. It could be true, but in most circumstances, before these things are verified, running along with it only causes further confusion, especially when Israel doesn't even need to use white phosphorus to fucking destroy every single Gazan enclave. Some small arms are so powerful that they can mutilate corpses even if the killing wasn't intentional. It was a firefight in this town between IDF militia against Hamas militants. We don't even know if the killing of the children was intentional or accidental. This is all propaganda designed to get us support to Israeli attacks on Gaza, which I posit is not even a necessity. Stop saying there's footage. Do you know where the footage comes from? Do you know if it's actually Gaza? Do you know if it's actually Gaza from yesterday? You don't know. These things have not been verified. That's why you need independent verification before running along with footage. Okay? Same goes in either direction. I am extremely careful when covering news of this sort. This is a big part of what my job is, what I try to do as best as I can. Half the time, it's like Arma 3 footage. Sometimes it is from Ukraine. Many ongoing conflicts occur, especially at nighttime. If you look at a nighttime white phosphorus footage, it could be in Syria, it could be in Ukraine. You have no fucking clue, and you just kind of go along with it. It's also worth noting that some people are contributing to the narrative by trying to denounce it as propaganda, misrepresenting the original reporting by claiming Zedek explicitly said all 40 babies were beheaded. In terms of methods for the analytics, I downloaded all the tweets. Oh, this was a good, I think this was good analysis from 972 Mag. I'm getting a lot of questions about the reports of Hamas beheaded babies that were published after the media tour in the village. During the tour, we didn't see any evidence of this, and the army spokesperson or commanders also didn't mention any such incidents. During the tour, journalists were allowed to speak to the hundreds of soldiers on site without the supervision of the army spokesperson team. I-24 reporter said she heard it from soldiers. Soldiers I spoke to in the Kfar Aza yesterday didn't mention beheaded babies, the army spokesperson stated. We cannot confirm this at this point. We are aware of the heinous acts Hamas is capable of. This doesn't mean that war crimes were not committed. Scene in Kfar Aza was horrific, with dozens of bodies of Israelis murdered in their homes. Okay? Sadly, Israel will now use these false claims to escalate the bombing of Gaza and to justify its war crimes here. Update, this story is still unfolding and information is still coming in that needs to be verified. I will update when I have more. Do you understand this? Do you get it? I hope it's a little bit more illuminating when we talk about the situation, okay? I need you to understand my goal is to parse through information and misinformation. So much misinformation is spreading right now. And the worst part about it isn't necessarily that misinformation spreads online. Of course, misinformation is going to spread online. The worst part about it is American media has dropped the ball entirely. Western media has dropped the ball entirely. They are completely oblivious or very cynically reporting on misinformation in an effort to further justify blood and fucking soil propaganda and the bombing campaign attached to it in Gaza. It is additionally ridiculous, especially because the atrocities are horrifying anyway. So what good? What good would you do in this circumstance to be like, well, some babies did die in a back and forth firefight? Many people tried to tell me, Hassan, the festival that the paratroopers landed on, you know, there were police officers shooting back at them, and that's why people died in the crossfire. Yeah, but they still died. Do you understand? So, paragliders flying into a festival with a bunch of festival attendees dying doesn't make it less bad. It's still bad. Hacking babies' heads off with a knife, beheading babies, dude. Oh, my Lord, holy moly. We just went through this, my man. We just went through it. Please stop. Please get help. How would something like the usage of white phosphorus be verified, though? There's still on the ground. There are still people on the ground who can independently verify the usage of white phosphorus. There will be an assessment made later as well, not immediately, but later as well. Unfortunately, a lot of people see this. Will see this as you being a Hamas apologist. Yes, I do not care. Okay, I do not care. I do not care if people say, Hassan, you're a Hamas apologist for this. Okay. I want the media to do its due diligence. That is insane. I have also pushed back on unverified information that is ostensibly on the Palestinian side as well. This is what I always do. Ridiculous. Hamas apologies would be nicer than what he's being called now. Yes, of course. People have no capacity to look at the situation and maybe apply their own morality or their own moral compass. So they have to fucking go for whatever piffy talking point that they can glom onto, that they can grab onto. That's it. Yeah, in the 90s and 2000s, I would have been called a Saddam supporter. I mean, in 2019, I was called a fucking Al-Qaeda supporter when I was criticizing Al-Qaeda. So what? Anyway, I can't believe we deviated so far away from Ben Shabibo and got so lost in the sauce. History will absolve me. Okay? History will absolve me. Not that it matters. I will be long gone by then, but it doesn't matter. I know what I'm doing is correct. If people do not care about the nuance of the circumstance, then there is nothing I can do about it. There is no moral victory at the end when you talk about massacres and slaughters occurring and say, well, you know, police were shooting back during the festival, so civilians got caught in the crossfire. It still does not change the reality that plenty of civilians died. that is still horrifying. The real goal in this situation is to contextualize said violence as a violent retaliation to an ongoing occupation and apartheid. It is not simply to say that that did not happen. It is not simply to say that that violence is just and awesome. It is to analyze that violence, look at it within a framework that is accurate, look at it as a reaction to an inherently violent apartheid regime, violence being a primary factor of the maintenance of said apartheid regime.
Moral exemplar, Hassan Piker.
They didn't deserve it, you idiot. My goal is solutions. Your goal is the continuation of violence. You want way more than 260 people dying. You want every single Palestinian to be executed ruthlessly in the streets so that you can build another theme park in Gaza. You baying pig. You bloodthirsty, violent pig dog. Suck my How do you think this happens? You think it happens out of nowhere? You think these people are just like, oh, we were violent because we want to be violent? You think that's where violence culminates from? Or do you think it's because you have entrapped them, you have bullied them, you have subjugated them, you have humiliated these people? 2 million people live inside of Gaza. They're not even people in the eyes of Israel. Wait, what? That's great. Oh, I thought he clip chimped me. That's correct. Oh, the other side of the clip is me also talking about like the atrocious conditions in Gaza. I guess that part he didn't want to show to his audience. Is that what it is? Because I thought he clip chimped me. But even the clip chimp is just posting my fucking dub, baby. I mean, fine. Why didn't you show the chat log you were looking at? Why didn't you show that? Yeah.
So that's presumably, according to Hassan Piker, why you would murder a baby. That's why you would murder a baby and burn entire families.
Yeah, that's me. Okay, yeah.
In their homes, in peaceful villages. That's why you would do that. Now, I'm going to attribute this to, again, the peculiar narcissism of people like Hassan Piker, who believes that everybody thinks like they do. And I would ask people like Hassan Piker, okay, if that's the case, if you really believe that victimization is what causes people to murder babies in their beds for the crime of being Jewish and breathing, then what would cause you to do something like that? Is
the
there
viral tweet he got from that all had people agreeing with you? Yeah, dude, why'd you post my dub, dog? Right after the clip, you say it's not justified? Yeah, let's see. So he cut me off right there. Okay, he cut me off right there and immediately starts talking about how I want baby murder to happen, okay, which is pretty cool, pretty interesting. Let me see what that full clip looked like, though, because that went viral on Twitter. That went viral on TikTok. Does anyone have the full clip? Can we see what I said? Can we see what the full clip was? Because there's a 2-minute. Now, I have been doing, what? At this point, 10 hours of coverage every single day on these issues. But let me fucking see what the full clip was. Do you think that this happened out of nowhere? Do you think this happened out of thin air? Are you fucking stupid? Do you think the Israeli state was just like peacefully coexisting? I'm gonna go pee. And then these guys came in with fucking gliders out of nowhere? Don't say fuck off, dude. They didn't deserve it, you fucking idiot. My goal is solutions. Your goal is the continuation of violence. You want way more than 260 people dying. You want every single Palestinian to be fucking executed ruthlessly in the streets so that you can build another fucking theme park in Gaza. You fucking baying pig. You fucking bloodthirsty, violent pig dog. Suck my dick. How do you think this happens? You think it happens out of nowhere? You think these people are just like, oh, we were violent because we want to be violent? You think that's where violence culminates from? Or do you think it's because you have entrapped them, you have bullied them, you have subjugated them, you have humiliated these fucking people? 2 million people live inside of Gaza. They're not even fucking people in the eyes of Israelis. 2 million. The average age is 18 years old. 57% unemployment. They can't even get fucking concrete inside of Gaza so they can build fucking water salination plants because 97% of their water is toxic. Why didn't he show this part, you think? Why didn't he show the rest of this? Just want to say he ratioed his ass 2 to 3 times while offline? They're dying of mass starvation. You cannot push people into a fucking corner their whole lives and not expect them to fight back at a certain point. Suck my dick. You fucking piece of shit. You and others like you who turn a blind eye to apartheid, genocide, and ethnic cleansing are the reasons as to why these people fucking fight back. So much so that you fucking cackling hyenas sit around and think, oh yeah, we're doing this in the West Bank too. That's the peaceful coexistence project. Look at the West Bank. You're doing it in the West Bank so fucking hard now that you left your ass out in the open in the southern fucking border of Israel. Think? He did edit it. He just clipped out the parts where he described Gaza's conditions. That's what I'm saying. Open air prison. Apartheid in... And the apartheid in the West Bank. Wonder why he chose to cut those parts out. An open air prison for mostly children. Along with me. Oh, this guy has not stopped asking me, do you think South Africa's government should be supporting Palestine? It also seems like most South Africans are very pro-Palestine, probably because of our apartheid past. Yes, brother, yes. Really okay with beheading babies? This is not an argument. You are not giving me an argument, okay? Of course I'm not okay with beheading babies. What the fuck are you talking about? Why do you come in here and repeat the same talking point over and over and over and over again? Okay? Is it simply a matter of winning a conversation for you? So much so that it's just not a matter of like even security for Israeli citizens? Is that what it is? Anytime motherfuckers are like, bro, I guess you're on board with beheading babies or whatever the fuck. Anytime you come in here and say idiotic things like that, you're not winning a moral victory at all. You're just talking past me and showing every single person, at least in this fairly robust community, that at the top of the hour there's a 3-minute ad break and you're oblivious to that. Okay? You're oblivious to that. This is also part of the reason why I don't want to talk about the narrative and whether or not it is unverified, unsubstantiated. Because when you turn around and you address a chatter saying that, they will clip you and they will use you and what you said as though you are defending it or you are saying no atrocities happened. This is a tactical reason as to why people come in here with this position. There is a reason for it. Okay? That's the entire point. And then other people who are supposedly on the radical side of politics or supposedly on the left will see you responding to that and go, oh, wow, I can't believe the left has gone so out of control. I was a dedicated Marxist my whole life. I was interested in Palestinian emancipation until I saw a 30-second clip from some random guy online, and I decided I'm dropping all of that. I no longer believe in the humanity of Palestinians. Okay? These people do not care about the dead Israeli citizens. These people do not care about the dead Palestinian citizens. They only care about winning fucking arguments. Okay? Here is the 3-minute ad break now. Now, we'll get into this conversation with Noah Kulwin of the Blowback Podcast now, and then we will move on. First, I want to address some of this stuff with Ben Shabibo, and then I'm going to look at the Hasbara propaganda lines. Okay, here, let's start the video call, and let's start it. Let's get right into it. Hold on. Let me deactivate my camera and activate it in the... Hello. 1 second. What's good?
Not much, hanging out. Actually, Brendan and I are on a Blowback season 5 planning retreat.
Nice. It's good to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, here is... Wait, hold on. Let me pop this out real quick. Let me pop this so everybody can see your beautiful face. Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, MBs, here is Noah Kulwin of the Blowback Podcast. He is going to, alongside myself, look at some of the Hasbara trolling ops that was dished out, titled effectively "How to Have Conversations About Israel on College Campuses." We will also be looking at a lot more. Noah, before we get started, because of course everyone is going to immediately call you a Hamas supporter and an anti-Semite, do you want to give people that maybe are unfamiliar your Jewish bona fides?
Sure. So I am a contributing editor at Jewish Currents, and for people who are still looking to get more information on the conflict, the Jewish Currents team has been doing terrific work on a still updating explainer series that I highly recommend. And I have reported from Israel and Palestine, and I've also written extensively on these issues for some time, both for Jewish Currents and other publications. And my Hebrew's pretty good, and I lived there once upon a time. I actually lived in southern Israel and have spent a decent amount of time in the places that a lot of people have been seeing footage from. And it's, fairly brain-breaking, to say the least.
Yeah, a lot of brains have been broken, but then also simultaneously, I feel like American media, Western media has reacted in an incredibly predictable fashion, and I think that is by design. This is part of the reason why we want to look at some of this propaganda, because a lot of people come in here and hit us with talking points. Ben Shapiro, I think I was texting you about this earlier. Ben Shapiro had a very viral TikTok / tweet of mine on his show that he featured, where he said I was a moral idiot or something, and immediately said that I actually personally love decapitating babies, things of that nature. It's pretty basic stuff. Do you have an opinion on the media repeating unverified, unsubstantiated claims without ever, offering a second thought to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that there are multiple levels to the phenomenon that you're describing. I think one level that's very, kind of basic and frankly pretty overlooked is that a lot of the reports about, the many real atrocities visited upon Israelis in the last few days, and a lot of the fake ones, they're being described and formatted into, fairly familiar stereotypes, frankly, about Arab savages and brown men raping white women.
A racist canard.
Exactly. And so I think that is a very easy and familiar framing for people to make sense of what they are, what it is that they're seeing. So that's thing number one. And then thing number two is that, the Israeli government, in a lot of the media that's circulating, now it's become, you can look at the New York Times and they have articles about how, false claims are undermining the integrity of trying to talk about the real atrocities. So it's already, the proliferation of, inflated accounts and yes, minimized accounts, but the proliferation of truly, outrageous claims like that babies were decapitated en masse. It's been, I think it sort of clearly serves to try and justify, at the very least, what Israel is doing at this very second, which is, pummeling and brutalizing Gaza to the point of extermination.
Yeah.
And then I think sort of the final level of this is that there's a game that was played in the media after 9/11 that was called "Do You Condemn?" And the "Do You Condemn" game is meant to eliminate and erase what is actually the fundamental American political subjectivity, right? Like what is actually, as an American, as a person who's, as political agents in the world, as people who are trying to think, well, what are the moral responsibilities that I have, to this conflict? Like what we can do. Well, Hamas murdered civilians, and the reports of it indicate that it was cold-blooded and cruel. But American taxpayer dollars do not pay for Hamas's Katyusha rockets, except in the sense that we pay for Israel's military, and Hamas steals their supplies from Israel or is given aid directly by Israel for stabilization purposes. But I digress.
Yeah, I was going to say our tax dollars have definitely
Yes,
contributed to Hamas being seen
Right,
as
but we are-
the responsible party or the responsible for Palestinian upkeep in general.
And we are, clearly the point I'm trying to make is that like we're the patrons of Israel, and so we have as a kind of immediate, influence on the, setting aside even the fact that Israel does have complete political control over events on the ground at the moment. Like they do. It's the responsibility begins and lies with them. This is they claim that this is territory that is under their control. They take responsibility for what happens in it. This includes the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, what is the Israeli government calls Judea and Samaria. It's their obligation. And I think that we are lost my train of thought with the Hamas digression there. But I do think that to the point about the Hamas sorry, trying to get back on track. Hamas's ability, the "Do You Condemn" game is sort of about trying to make it clear that like our relationship to Hamas is not at all about, or obscuring that it is not at all like our relationship to Israel. Because we do not support Hamas in the same way that we support Israel. If we want to have influence as political actors and help, and actually trying to get American politicians, whether it's AOC or Lindsey Graham, who's calling for a war on Islam, it looks like, to actually do something productive, or the State Department, that's what our capacity is for. But we don't really have the position, it's sort of, I think, an acknowledgement of our inability to influence as Americans our foreign policy so concretely that we are instead, the media has become, and I think it also obviously serves the interests of people who, are very clearly aggressively pro-Israel and support the Israeli government. But yeah, I mean, they want us to we're just having discourse about discourse, and whether or not people providing explanations for why Hamas did something or why an event happened are in fact making excuses for it, or whether or not somebody said an annoying thing at a protest or somebody said something online.
Yeah.
And it's just misdirection. That's
Can
all.
Can I cut in here for 1 second?
Yeah, please. I'm done.
So I have been talking about the Mia Khalifa stuff and everything else that has accompanied the Palestinian forces entering Israel, and the double standard, of course. It's one that I know very well, being Muslim and living in America in a post 9/11 universe. One where if you are in any way, shape, or form, interested in analyzing where this violence begins, you are, especially as a Muslim person, you are immediately asked to condemn the terrorism, condemn the violence, and it is, I think, a way to bog down the conversation. It's a way to just shut off the conversation, because a lot of people come in here and say, "Oh, you love babies being decapitated," it seems. And it's if I sit there and go, this might be a real news story. I am not completely sure, but it is certainly frustrating to me that the IDF refuses to verify said claims, or yada yada yada. All of a sudden, I'm in a defensive posture talking about whether or not babies' heads were chopped off, when in fact a massacre still occurred, right? That part is real. And if your goal is to ensure that Israeli citizens are not being murdered, if your goal is to ensure that Palestinians are not being murdered and ruthlessly being subjects of an apartheid regime that necessitates violence, right? Then you have to look at this from a broader lens and not hyper focus on whether or not whichever way babies were murdered, basically, right? I think Lib Crusher, weird to mention a name like that when we're talking about such serious subject matters, put it aptly here. He said, I don't know where their kids were beheaded, but it seems pretty clear now that there were wholesale massacres near the Gaza border, and I have no reason to doubt kids are among the victims. Doesn't make you a squish on Palestinian liberation to acknowledge it. Gaza simply can't be more surveilled, more deprived, more isolated than it already has been, short of outright genocide. Millions of Gazans have paid a horrific price for this futile, delusional strategy. Now thousands of Israelis have too. Gazans have been subjected to endless surveillance, humiliation, and inherently indiscriminate bombing, blockades, and deprivation of the most basic necessities of human life for decades now, all in the name of security for Israelis. What's the justification now? Do you agree with that? I don't know. I'm saying that, like,
yeah, I think it's right. I think that what I just always hesitate about is that, I think that, like, again, after 9/11, the do you condemn game was made to make people answer for, as if that they were, if you support Palestinian resistance and if you support, like, that you are made to answer for, like, the justice of the cause is compromised by the excesses of people for whom you're not accountable for.
Yeah.
And who don't, whose actions do not undermine the integrity of that cause if you seriously believe it. And that's where, like, I just don't, like, I agree, like, it doesn't make you a squish, but, like, I do think that there is, it's just disturbing to see how many people's loyalty cards are being demanded to be shown to show that, like, we still have a conscience and that we're actually we condemn the indiscriminate murder of children in spite of what some hotheads said on Twitter. I just don't think that that's, like, it just, like, I'm not, and frankly, I'll say this, like, it's a very effective rhetorical tactic at this moment.
Yeah.
But we don't know a ton about what's happening in Gaza because they have no power. Many people are running out, like, and they get power for the limited number of people that are able to get solar energy during the day that can supply, a very limited amount. So we're on, like, a really limited, we're limited. We have there's a limited amount of information that we are getting about what is going on in Gaza specifically, and I think that means that we are. I don't know, like, it's just difficult for people to even, like, see or acknowledge the, like, like, the vastness of what the Israeli, both what Israel's, what the Israeli operation seems to be underway now, the speech that apparently Benny Gantz, the former general who has been invited into the unity government or war cabinet, if you want to call it that, he's, like, he previously ran for prime minister as both, like, the principal opposition to Bibi, but, I'm sure, as many of your listeners know or viewers know, he also ran a campaign ad bragging about bombing Gaza back to the Stone Age.
Yeah, he literally put his war crimes up. He posted his war crimes to be like, vote for me. Like, I'm no fucking, die in the wool, bleeding heart libtard. I promise. Like, I will also do war crimes, which I was given a medal for. Awesome.
Yeah. It's, and look, there are even reports, and it's been a tactic in the past. We saw the murder of Shireen Abu Akleh from Al Jazeera. And, like, the Israeli press, the Israeli military has killed the press. And so there is also, I think, a degree to which we don't see what's going on in Gaza because Israel it's not just because, like, Israel's deprived power and stuff. It's that Israel's not letting foreign press in because they control who gets to go in and out. And also, they've racked up a fair number of media bodies themselves. A number of Palestinian journalists in the West Bank, I saw photos of this already, have been protesting the murder of Gazan journalists. It's awful top to bottom. I also think one of the other things, one thing that is worth adding to this is that the Israeli public is pretty shattered in a way that I think is not quite coming through in English language media and in English language Twitter.
Oh yeah.
the Israeli public is really, it's been very divided and quite polarized for some time. You could argue really since it's like the latest era of Israeli politics was inaugurated in 2009 with the first election, rather the second election of Netanyahu. And I would, I think that there is like the era of that consensus is possibly cracking within Israel. And it may, create an opening that hasn't existed previously because of the far right's increasing control over so much of the country, for this kind of, more geopolitically minded kind of centrist bloc to take control. And that's been a policy drift that's been sort of made impossible within Israel, something that you could be called, let's say, like an accommodationist wing, since Rabin was assassinated, Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated in the 1990s.
So that's actually
the last dovish Israeli prime minister.
Yeah. So I do wanna. You bring up a good point about Yitzhak Rabin, because I specifically want to talk about something that I find to be particularly interesting. Now, obviously, Yitzhak Rabin was largely hailed as like the last Israeli leader that actually wanted to even negotiate with Palestinians in good faith and like treat them as humans, and yet he still was, of course, a Zionist and absolutely was not genuinely interested in like having to my understanding, having the same amenities for Palestinians, significantly better than the current Israeli position. That would be a major compromise that many Israelis probably would not even agree with at this point, as far as I understand. And yet, what was it? A state minus? What was the sentiment?
The idea. Yeah, I mean, the idea was essentially that, like, Rabin is credited, the Oslo process is initiated, and there's this, very like the Oslo process was like a failure, and I think Palestinian activists and scholars and have really argued and sort of completely put to bed any idea that like the Oslo process was anything other than just like arresting the development of Palestinian resistance from the time of the First Intifada, in the early 90s. The thing with Rabin, though, and sort of what his death speaks to, is not so much about like, well, could Rabin have been, a kind of like, let's say, Israeli Mandela, to invert pretty, a former racist. Like, I mean, I think that he could have been maybe more like a De Gaulle kind of figure, because he had founding father credibility from having been a man in uniform at a very young age in the early days of the state. And he was also, I mean, he recognized in a meaningful way the necessity of Jews and Palestinians to live like that basically the thing that really accelerated after he died, and it's a meaningful contribution to why we're in the specific situation that we're in today, was that Rabin, the settlement enterprise that exploded after him completely undermined any ability for Jews and Palestinians to live side by side. The separation barrier that was erected roughly along the border of the Green Line. I say roughly because it also stole tons of land from Palestinians in a more direct theft than the original 48 theft. The security barrier sort of helped consecrate that and sort of contribute and reify even more concretely that Palestinians and Jews were now to be living in separate and pretty much in permanently unequal conditions, sort of calcifying the apartheid. So I think when we talk about Rabin, the kind of thing that's helpful to consider is that like what has been absent in the almost 30 years since his death is the idea of a leader of Israel who is actually willing to make concessions. Yeah. And now that the Palestinians have, demonstrated that they can threaten, again, Israel's geopolitical basic calculus, right? Like the Hamas revolt in Gaza, complemented by, the threats from Houthis in Yemen and the, Hezbollah's, the quote unquote Hezbollah menace or threat in southern Lebanon, although it seems pretty clear that Hezbollah has not, as of yet, not gotten involved.
Just some
I
back
mean,
and forth
the basic
artillery
security
shelling.
calculus on Israel is now totally been jeopardized. One other important point that's been kind of lost in everything going on today, that like, the Hamas attack and the murder of civilians is very, very ugly, but the Israeli public is shattered. And they may turn to somebody like that again because, like a Robin figure again, because the basic security calculus that was constructed since his death has now been challenged, meaningfully challenged.
Exactly. This is really important to analyze from the framework of Benjamin Netanyahu and his increasingly reactionary coalitions that he put together. Was seen as the security candidate. This is something that was very important for Israelis, and that is what like carried him beyond the shitty allegiances that he made. But that was always his, as far as I understand, that was always his selling point, that his reactionary politics were actually going to keep Israelis safe, and that fragility was demonstrated in this last Palestinian incursion, and an unimaginable, untold amount of Israeli deaths occurred. This has never happened before. It took, 3 days now of endless bombing campaigns in Gaza?
I woke up to seeing like videos of, these are like a lot of, and this is not like what I'm saying does not apply universally. This isn't like every Israeli settlement or village is like this, and or town or city. But this, like, you have like communities, really, like these are not, and these are also, by the way, not the equivalent of like West Bank settlements where they are beyond what we'll call the 67 borders. Like these are communities within, what would be called like, I don't want to like, I don't mean to say this in like a, legitimating the 48 thefts, but just to like describe how like
I say Israel proper. I think everybody understands what you mean when you say that. Like,
so Israel proper. And so these towns, like you have like reservists. So in Hebrew, miluim, like, who are essentially, because everybody in Israel serve in the military. And then once you're done with your few years, you have designated reserve duty. And it is, historically speaking, considered more of like a chore than it is like a particularly, like threatening or serious obligation. And so now it's like you have like reservists, people who probably are not like, particularly blooded or trained soldiers, who are in the, trying to be, who are appealing for help. And I saw one report that like blew me away this morning, where they like the army said like, you're on your own for a while. Like there's just no, like you're seeing a degree of breakdown that is really like, like they may be able to recover from it. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say that like this necessarily means something really dramatic is going to start shifting in the current geopolitical order. But like this is the biggest blow that it has taken. Since '73. I think that's the appropriate comparison.
So 2 things I want to mention. One thing I knew about and another I did not. 2 people that were involved in calling for the death of Yitzhak Rabin, who then, of course, did get assassinated, are now, of course, heads of state in Israel. I'm referencing Benjamin Netanyahu and also Ben-Gvir, which I did not know. I knew about Ben-Gvir. I did not know Netanyahu also facilitated alongside Likud Rabin is a murderer, he's a traitor, and we have to lynch him party, which the chief of internal security, Carmi Gilon, at the time alerted Netanyahu of a plot on Rabin's life and asked him to moderate the protest rhetoric, which Netanyahu declined to do. Ben-Gvir also is, directly a Kahanas terrorist, so he's done much worse shit outside of that. But this is something to understand. This is something to consider, that like the one dude that maybe was supposedly going to be more definitely going to be more reasonable than the current Israeli government was assassinated, and people have been voting for those who supported his assassination over and over again. And that violent rhetoric and that violence that accompanies Israel's apartheid conditions has only intensified. And I'm sure you've seen this as well, the Shin Bet warnings on internal security and how the continued occupation or the continued apartheid conditions in the West Bank were actually going to cause security collapse.
Damn, this guy's good.